In last video, we were discussing about the rules of scientific nomenclature. So we looked on to the two rules, that is, first one is that all the names, they are Latinized or they are derived from Latin. Second one is that they are separately underlined if handwritten. When I am handwriting it, then we have to separately underline it, and if we are printing the name, we have to print it in italics to denote their Latin origin. After that, the next rule is that this scientific nomenclature is what is called as biological nomenclature. Okay, this is called as biological. This is called as binomial nomenclature. Binomial nomenclature. Okay, binomial nomenclature. Now what do you mean by binomial nomenclature? Bi means two. You know that bi means two. Okay, and nomenclature means naming. Okay, so in this process of scientific nomenclature, we use two words to name an organism, right? All organism must have two names or two words in that particular name. So what are the two words? The first word is what is called as generic name. It is called as generic name. Okay, the first word is generic name. Okay, generic name मतलब उसके जो genera का name होगा. We looked onto the taxonomic hierarchy. What was the second lowest level of classification? That was genera, है ना? That was genus. ठीक है, genus का plural genera. So generic name is the name of the genus of that particular organism, of that particular species. ठीक है. Now the first one is generic name. तो लोग बहुत बच्चे लोग confuse होते हैं ना. They say ma'am that the first word is generic name and the second word is the specific name. No, that's wrong. The second word is what is called as the specific epithet. That is what is called as the specific epithet. ठीक है. तो आप पूछेगा मैम then what is the name of the species? What is the name of the species? So combining generic name and the specific epithet, you get the name of species. So these two है ना, this whole is what is the name of species. ठीक है, this whole is what is the name of species. तो आपसे कोई पूछे how many words are there in the name of species? Is it one? Is it two? It is two. Why? Because the name of species constitutes both of the generic name and the specific epithet. And how many words does the generic name have? Generic name has only one word. And why? Because the first word is itself the generic name. Okay. So the next point, that these two words, they, when they are written or they are printed, they are written separately. ठीक है, they are written separately. ठीक है. उसके अलावा the first letter of generic name, this must be capital. है ना, this must be capital. Why it should be capital? है ना, just common English. We know that whenever we start the name of anything, we always capitalize the letters, right? That is the rule of English, of nouns, right? Whenever we start a noun, we always, and a first noun, that is, we capitalize the first letter. And so the second letter, what about the second letter? The second letter, that is normal, that is not capitalized. That is not capitalized. So all rest letters are in small case. Only the first letter of the generic name is capitalized or is in the upper case. All the letters, rest all the letters, they are in small case. ठीक है, rest all of them are in small case. Next, fifth, all organisms should have only one scientific name. Why only one scientific name? Because आप सोचिए scientific name का whole purpose is that one particular organism must be known by that particular name all over the world. So what will happen if we name one or two or three scientific names? Then there will be confusion. Then again some people will understand us, some will not, है ना? So please remember that only one scientific name for one particular organism is present. Next, the opposite of this is also true, that one organism, only one scientific name for one organism, है ना? One scientific name for one organism, and one name must denote a particular organism. ऐसा ना हो कि एक ही organism का नाम है तो I can denote two types of species, है ना? जैसे my name is Rashi, है ना? So there may be many Rashis in the world, but it should not be like that in the scientific nomenclature. The name which we are referring must refer to only one organism. ठीक है? So one name must be there for only one organism. ठीक है? One name must be there for only one organism. ठीक है? So the last rule which you have to study is that sometimes the what do you mean by author? Author means one who writes something. ठीक है? So the author of that particular scientific name can also be presented at the end of the word. But before this rule, let me tell you the example of a scientific name. है ना? What we are seeing here is mango plant, है ना? So what we are seeing here is mango plant. The common name of this is Mangifera indica. I'm very sorry, the common name is mango, है ना? इंग्लिश में हम कहते हैं मैंगो, है ना? हिंदी में हम कहते हैं आम. ठीक है? चलिए. And what is the scientific name of this? The scientific name of this is Mangifera indica. ठीक है? The scientific name of this is Mangifera indica. Now look at how I wrote it. See, I have written two words. This is the scientific name, so I have written two words. The first one is called as the generic name. The second one is called as specific name. No, that is called as specific epithet. And the whole Mangifera indica is the name of the species mango plant. Alright, so this is Mangifera indica. Now see, since I have handwritten it to denote its Latin origin, I have separately underlined both the words. And the first letter of the generic name is capital. The first letter of the generic name is capital, and all the letters, they are in small case. Alright, so let us look at the last rule, the rule of author. है ना? So if we are writing about the author's name is coming in the scientific name, author's name is present in scientific name, we abbreviate it. What is the meaning of abbreviation? An abbreviation means किसी भी word को एक short form में लिख देना, है ना? जैसे I am saying communication is a very big word, है ना? I have to use it again and again. So what I will do, I will make an abbreviation of that word. ठीक है? So how do we write an abbreviation? याद रखना, English का rule है, all the abbreviations they are in small case, है ना? Nothing is in capital letters. All the letters are in small letters, and even though there is name of the author, but since it is abbreviated and it is not written, the full name is not written, that is why all the letters will be small. Okay, and since they are not derived, are they Latinized? Are they derived from Latin? No, they are not. They are the names of the author, so they must not be printed in italics or they must not be underlined, है ना. And whenever you are writing an abbreviation, you always follow the abbreviation, the compacted form of word by a dot, है ना. These are the rules of English, ठीक है. So how do we write an abbreviation? So the author of scientific name Mangifera indica is a very famous biologist, that is who is called as Carolus Linnaeus, है ना, who is called as Carolus Linnaeus. So if I have to write down about him, है ना, so I am writing it down like this, ठीक है. First thing, his name will not be capital and I will have to abbreviate it. So Carolus Linnaeus का LINN, ठीक है, and I will not underline it. Why? Because these are not derived from Latin, and whenever I am writing an abbreviation, the first letter must be of small case and it is followed by a dot. So this is how, if you have to write the name of an author, you will write the name. And the names of authors, that is not necessary for any scientific name. What are necessary? If you have to write a scientific name, you have to write the generic name plus specific epithet, and which will denote the name of the species, and you'll have to separately underline it with first generic name, first letter of the generic name will start with capital. Okay, with this we complete the rules of scientific nomenclature. I hope you don't have any problem in this. See, this is scientific nomenclature. The first rule, separately underline generic name plus specific epithet, है ना. Okay, now let us move forward. Now let us move forward and come back to classification, ठीक है. Come back to classification. Now before classification, let me tell you now what are the organizations which give scientific name called as. Obviously the name of the particular organisms must be constant all over the world. It must be only one all over the world. So there must be some organization which give name to the organism, है ना. नहीं तो हर कोई बोलेगा हम scientific name दे रहे हैं, I am giving the scientific name. So there are various organizations which give scientific names to particular group of organization. In your NCERT, ICBN and ICZN are mentioned. Okay, ICBN and ICZN are mentioned. So ICBN stands for International Code for Botanical Nomenclature. International पूरा लिख लेना है ना, चलो ठीक है, हम ही लिखते हैं. International Code for botanical nomenclature, ठीक है. इन नेशनल कोड फॉर बॉटनिकल नोमेनक्लेचर. ऑब्वियसली व्हाट डू यू मीन बाय बॉटनी, है ना. अभी तक तो इतना क्लास 11th में आया है, तो यू मस्ट हैव नोन दैट बायोलॉजी इज डिवाइडेड मेनली इनटू टू पार्ट्स. वन इज जूलॉजी एंड अनदर इज बॉटनी. सो व्हाट डू यू मीन बाय बॉटनी? बॉटनी इज द स्टडी ऑफ प्लांट्स एंड जूलॉजी, जू मीन्स एनिमल, है ना. ऑलवेज रिमेंबर ZOO, जू मीन्स एनिमल. दैट इज वाई व्हेन वी गो टू द जू वी सी एनिमल्स, है ना. सो जू मीन्स एनिमल एंड लॉजी मीन्स स्टडी, ठीक है. सो जूलॉजी, सो ऑल द प्लांट्स दे आर named by ICBN, International Code for, and this organization which is called as International Code for Botanical Nomenclature. And the second one which is mentioned in your NCERT is ICZN. This is called as, है ना, Z for zoology, है ना. याद रखना, IC International Code for Zoological Nomenclature. Zoological nomenclature. Next आपको एक दो एक्स्ट्रा जानना है जो मैं आपको बता दे रही हूँ, दैट इज ICBN. है ना. बैक से बताओ क्या हो सकता है. बैक स्टैंड्स फॉर बैक्टीरिया, है ना. सो इंटरनेशनल कोड फॉर बैक्टीरियल नोमेनक्लेचर. National Code for Bacterial Nomenclature. Then there is ICVN. ठीक है. Then there is ICVN. ICVN stands for International Code for Viral Nomenclature, है ना, National Code for Viral Nomenclature. ठीक है. आई डोंट थिंक इसके आगे आपको कुछ और जानने की ज़रूरत है. अगर कहीं आपको MCQs बनाते हुए मिल गया, रिमेंबर इट, है ना, मोर और लेस दीज आर द इम्पॉर्टेंट वंस. सो दीज आर द ऑर्गेनाइजेशन विच नेम which give the scientific name to a particular organism, है ना. With this we end our nomenclature and let us start with classification. So in classification I told you that we will come back to classification, है ना. याद रखना टैक्सोनॉमी में कुछ प्रोसेसेस बेसिक होते हैं. ठीक है. टैक्सोनॉमी के बारे में तो हमने पढ़ लिया. देयर आर 4 प्रोसेसेस. आपका होमवर्क ये है, देयर आर सम बेसिस ऑफ टैक्सोनॉमी. यू विल गो एंड स्टडी योर NCERT एंड NCERT में आप पेज नंबर 7 and 8 में देखेंगे व्हाट आर द बेसिस फॉर टैक्सोनॉमी, है ना. दिस इज अ डिफरेंट क्वेश्चन. व्हाई आई एम स्ट्रेसिंग ऑन एवरीथिंग, बिकॉज हर एक लाइन NCERT का इज अ पोटेंशियल क्वेश्चन टू यू. ठीक है. सो व्हाट आर द steps of taxonomy? I told you that there were 4 steps. What are those? Are characterization, identification, classification and nomenclature. And your homework is that you will go and look on to page number 7 and 8 and find the basis of taxonomy in various organisms. After that, something extra there is additional to taxonomy. You have to study about one more thing, that is systematics. That is systematics. What do you mean by systematics? When you add evolutionary relationships to taxonomy, है ना. Taxonomy is just the study of biodiversity, है ना. Studying of organism is biodiversity. When you see the evolutionary relationships between various organisms, है ना, how did one organism evolve from another organism, which organisms are related by evolution. So that study is what is called as systematics, है ना. तो याद रखना, systematics is all the processes basic to taxonomy plus your evolutionary relationships. Now this Carlos Linnaeus, he gave 2 books, है ना. He wrote 2 books on systematics. That is, one is mentioned in your NCERT, which is called as Systema Naturae, है ना. That is called as Systema Naturae, and you have to remember some names. That is called as Systema Naturae. ठीक है. And this Systema Naturae was the book for systematics for animals only, है ना. एनिमल्स के लिए वो लिखे थे. This was for animals. And there was another book which he wrote, which is not mentioned in your NCERT, and that is called as Species Plantarum, है ना. नाम से ही पता चल रहा है, this is for plants. ठीक है, this is for plants. So these 2 were written by Carlos Linnaeus. ठीक है, on systematics. So this is about the basic information on taxonomy. Now let us come on to what is called as a species. Okay, let us come on to what is called as a species. Now tell me, what is species? What do you understand by species? ठीक है. Species को we define a group of organisms a group of organisms which can sexually reproduce, which can sexually interbreed and produce fertile offsprings. This is the definition of species normally which we say. What is the meaning of this? This means a group of organisms which are capable of reproducing. This is humans. They are capable of reproducing and they are capable of producing offsprings. Second point is they are capable of producing offspring or their children, and that they are capable of producing fertile offsprings. That means the organism, the offsprings which they are producing, they must be able to reproduce further. We studied about fertility, fertile and sterile in reproduction. What is the meaning of fertile? Those organisms which can reproduce, they are called as fertile, and those which cannot, they are called as infertile. So what is the definition of a species? Those which can sexually interbreed, sexually reproduce and produce fertile offsprings. That means the offsprings which they beget, they must also be fertile, and they must also be able to reproduce. And let us go back to the example of sterility. One example of sterility was mules. I told you about mules, that they are a cross between the horses and donkeys. And you will say that, ma'am, horses and donkeys are also reproducing, but is that mule fertile? Will that mule be able to produce any further mules? No, it will not be able to produce. So horses and donkeys, they belong to separate species. All right, so that is the meaning of species. Now, but in NCERT here, when you are studying about species, please look at page number 9. Taxonomically, when we are studying species taxonomically, we do not define it by this definition. How do we define it? Species, according to your NCERT, one species have got common morphological similarities. And one species is a group of organisms which has got common similar morphological similarities. What do you mean by common morphological similarities? Common morphological similarities मतलब कि आपका there are two words. Okay, first is morphology and another is anatomy, and actually one more, there is physiology. What do you understand by morphology, anatomy and physiology? Morphology means कोई भी organism, any organism, how is it looking from outside, बाहर से वो कैसा दिख रहा है, that is morphology. ठीक है, तो जैसे if you are looking at me, what are you looking? I'm having two hands, I'm having some hair, I'm having some skin, so this is my morphology. And this is my morphology. What is anatomy? When I cut myself, when you cut any organism and look inside, what is there inside the organism, that is the anatomy of an organism. So when you'll cut me, what you'll see that I have got a brain. Can you visualize it from outside? You cannot. So brain can only be visualized from outside. Heart, lungs, stomach, everything can be visualized from inside. This is what is anatomy. Anatomy means the internal structure of an organism. Finally, there is physiology. Physiology means functions of an organism. How are all the metabolic processes, and anatomy is occurring to keep you alive. That is what is physiology. Okay, so all the organisms with fundamental morphological similarities means if you see me, you identify me as a human. देखने के basis पे, do you need to see me that whether I am able to reproduce or not? No. You can simply identify a species by looking at that. That yes, it has got two hands, it has got some head. So some morphological similarities which you can visualize, you can classify them on the basis of that. This is how taxonomically a species is defined, that is species with fundamental morphological similarities. After species, we will study about the various taxonomic levels, species पढ़ लिए, what are genera, उसके ऊपर फिर family, genus, order, etc. So we will study about that in the next video.